episode 2 of Horror Business. Today we're going to be discussing how to select the best social media platform for your author profile. But to evaluate correctly, we're going to need Sun Tzu's advice to know yourself and your enemy, which is the social media platform you desire: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. And when you know your strengths and embrace your personalities, it will show you which enemy you should attack first. Each enemy is different, and as Sun Tzu warns, some battles must never be fought. Before we start the attack, Lucy, would you say an author should pick just one platform and really excel in it and become an expert? Or do you think it's better to be a jack of all trades, and why?
I think it's actually somewhere in the middle. I think you really do need to diversify. This is actually a perfect question for today because just about a week ago is when Facebook and Instagram had that major outage. They were out for hours and hours and hours, and which really just kind of like these things are kind of volatile. So you don't want to be completely dependent on one because something totally unrelated to you can change, and that can really affect your entire marketing, sometimes your way of making a living. So while I don't think you need to be on it with all social media platforms all the time, and being like a social media guru in every platform, I do think it's good to diversify and at least have like a moderate presence on pretty much like the big four social media
Right.
platforms.
I love the term you said, diversify, because in my head when I was thinking of it was investment portfolios. You do not want all your eggs in one basket. When I was growing up, I remember people telling me like, oh, cash is king, you got to have cash. And as I got older, I realized, wow, no, that's not really true, you know? And a true investor has that big picture, and they're going for the long run. And so sometimes their value is in cash, sometimes it's in real estate, sometimes it's stocks and bonds, and they shift over time. Maybe one goes down like Facebook and they're ready to go with another one. It sounds like, though, for the author, the best thing to do would be to heavily invest yourself in the one you're most comfortable with first, and then diversify from there. So what personality traits or skill sets are best lined up to which platforms, in your opinion?
Well, I just want to also say that it's not just what to go on what you said is that you need to think about it in terms of what you're going to be good at. You don't want to be trying a platform that is a mismatch to your skill set, even if it is one that might be the future, that might have the biggest user base, that might be the one that people are always saying to push yourself toward. Because the thing to consider is that if you make bad content, people aren't going to follow you. And people aren't going to engage with your posts. That's one thing. You can always try to do better. The problem is that the algorithms very quickly learn that you make bad content that nobody engages with. Thus, the algorithms do not distribute your posts. So you will be fighting a major uphill battle, and it will be really, really difficult. So you might not make good content, but so if it's something that's just not well suited to you,
Mm-hmm.
then I wouldn't make that as your platform that you're going to focus on. So
That makes a lot of sense.
thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thinking about that, it's you want to give yourself the best chance to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So you between I'm going to talk about really the four really big social media platforms now, going through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. There are some other ones that you can use also, but those are the big four. Those are the ones that have billions of users on each one of them. So starting with Facebook, it's and some of this, what I'm going to talk about, is going to be based on comfort. For a lot of us, Facebook is the most comfortable. It's been around the longest.
Guilty.
We've been most accustomed to it. Same here.
Yeah.
Same here. I was in college in 2004 when Facebook came out. I've had an account for 17 years. Even when Facebook was just to connect college students. So I was using it to keep in touch with my high school friends. And it's evolved since then tremendously, but I still use it to keep in touch with my high school friends. So it's really, Facebook is almost like a micro blogging platform, like a journal. That's what it was originally intended. It was people, the early days, it was people taking pictures of their dinner and then
Right,
taking
right.
pictures of their kids. Like
Yes.
after they got a little bit older, they graduated from college and they would show you pictures of their kids. That's what it was. It was just like a scrapbook. It was capturing your day. It was spontaneous. The content wasn't meant to be polished or anything. It was just, here's something going on in my life to tell people, so people can know, people who care about you that, may be separated geographically will be able to see what you're up to these days. And in that sense, it hasn't really changed with the type of content on there. Like, it's still spontaneous thoughts. It's still pictures of, things that are going on in your life. It's still sharing it, but now it's evolved to like sharing memes and things like that. But these are all things like really of the moment. It's not performative. It's not like necessarily all that curated.
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of people, it's really easy because you can put a fleeting thought kind of up there, like, and you can start a conversation with people. So I think it's a really, really easy platform to use because it requires, I guess, like the least preparation for it, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. That does. When it comes to authors, because there's this idea that, well, I have my personal page, but then I also have my author page. What do you think? Do you think an author page is worthwhile for someone to jump into right away? Yes or no?
No, I don't. And I think if you use pen name or if you want to separate your author profile, I would do it as a whole other personal account. A couple of reasons why. Number one is that you will annoy the hell out of everyone if you start spamming them with requests to like your page. This is one of the most off-putting things an author can do in marketing is request someone as a friend and then immediately send them a friend request, immediately ask them to like your page. It's transparent. It's the equivalent of like cold calling.
Yeah.
And
I like that comparison.
It's awful. It's awful. And so, and also there's like a technical problem with pages right now. So you might notice that if you see like a business page, it's like if you run a business page or if you have an author page, you don't get the likes and you don't get the comments that you would on a personal page. And that is by design with Facebook. There's been some algorithm changes that happened in the past several years so in about 2016, Facebook proclaimed that they were going to put a halt to the spread of misinformation by minimizing the reach of pages and prioritizing the reach of prioritizing your position in the news feed of content from friends and family. Because according to them, there were these pages that were sending out misinformation. And if by prioritizing, the reach of the people, then you weren't going to get hit with all this misinformation. So that's what they said, whether that
I like how you rebranded or reframed that, because to me, it sounded like they really wanted me to pay them a lot of money so that my ads got seen from like my business page.
That's absolutely why they did it.
Okay, good.
But it happened right then when they told the world it was to combat misinformation. But it was really just to make these pages, because then all of a sudden, if you ran a business page, you'd see this thing that says, if you want this post to reach a larger audience, you can boost it. Give us $50 and we'll boost it to a bunch of people who don't care about your product, but we'll give you a lot of likes. So people who don't understand how the platforms work that are sometimes managing these for small businesses are going to see these vanity metrics. That's a whole other rant. But basically what happens is that if you have a page, Facebook is going to restrict your reach to the point where you can only reach your own people who follow you by paying for advertising to Facebook. That is how they make money.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work, especially for a really small account and a small page. If you run a business page, like I manage one for a client that has 15,000 followers, and our posts routinely reach about 230 people.
Okay. That makes me just really happy to hear it from somebody else, because I can only look at the analytics for Bloodbound Books page, and that's exactly what I see. For me, it was a real struggle when I didn't understand this, because I kind of did have these, I don't want to say two separate lives, but I was a school teacher, like
Mhm.
working with elementary kids. And then on the other part of my life, I was publishing, Jack Ketchum and Edward Lee and John McNee and Triana in DOA books. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. One day I'm like, yay, I'm going to do the parachute with the kids. And then the next day I'm like, well, I can't really post about this book. So I thought, well, this is great that I have a Bloodbound Books page. I'm a business owner. And then suddenly it dwindles. And like you said, I'm getting
Yep.
like 7, 10 likes. But if I did the same thing on my personal page, massive engagement. And so it
Yep.
was really upsetting, and it can make you feel like you're spinning your wheels if you don't understand that. So I'm really
Mhm.
glad you touched on it.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And just for anyone who does have an author page, please do not boost your posts.
Yeah.
Do not do it. As I said before, it only gives you vanity metrics. You will see nothing out of it in terms of sales, in terms of people converting to be your followers, converting to any sort of customers. If you want to run an ad from Facebook, run it as an ad. Go into Business Manager, into Ads Manager, and run it as an ad. The boosting posts is just a way from my mind, to extort people who don't really know what they're doing.
That sounds about right. So before you go on, I just want to make sure I hear this. Maybe it's a good idea then, if you have an author page, do it and maybe just copy some of your stuff there, but don't pour yourself in primarily as that as your focus. Okay.
Yeah. The other thing too with Facebook that is another drawback of that, it's not necessarily like a restrictive algorithm, is that Facebook is meant to be reciprocal. It's really the only platform that you have to be a friend. Everything else you can follow, but Facebook, you're supposed to reciprocate. Like, it's supposed to be a mutual connection. So
Right.
having an author page, like, you're not really engaging with other people. And if you're not ever engaging with other accounts, commenting on other people's things, liking people's things, then you're not really doing social media the way it's intended. And that's going to be an issue on all of the platforms,
Right.
but it's really going to be an issue on Facebook.
That makes a lot of sense.
So Facebook, that's kind of my thought on it. The only big drawback with having a personal account is you're limited to 5,000 friends, which does kind of suck.
Right.
But what can you do?
Yeah.
So the other one I talk about is Instagram, which is primarily a visual platform. So whereas Facebook is, you can post a bad photo of your dinner that you made and bad lighting, and you can post that on Facebook, and that's okay. That's what we're used to seeing on Facebook. It was not a photography app. It was, from what I remember, it might have even I don't even remember if it supported photos when I first had it, but it was, it was not meant for anything great. Like, keep in mind, in 2004, there weren't even cameras on phones. And then when they started, they were very low quality compared to what we have now. So it wasn't meant to have beautiful images or anything like that. Instagram, on the other hand, was started as a way to showcase beautiful photography. That's why it has all those filters where you can go in and you can make your, you can change the colors
photos and everything, and filters.
Not that.
No, not those. Okay.
Not that yet. Yeah, just the ones that actually just make your image look really nice, like putting a filter on it that's gives it like a matte filter, so you can have like a whole aesthetic that you've established for your account. So the important thing about that, and Instagram has evolved, but the thing that's still prioritized is really good aesthetics. So Instagram is good for people who at least have some sort of awareness of, color, photography, composition. That's why you'll see there's a whole trend within the reading community of just taking pictures of books that are similar colors.
Yes.
Because people like seeing them because they're beautiful photos. Like, they're totally meaningless. It's like, here's a stack of red books, but it's a nice photo. So who cares that it has no substance behind it?
Yeah, it is very pleasing. I even like some of the ones I follow, people who have like a nice steaming cup of coffee next to a book, and then there's a pumpkin. I'm like, I feel fall in this picture. Like,
I know.
yeah, and it's just nice. It's looking like an art book, and that's nice.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And so that's what's going to perform on Instagram, is stuff that takes advantage of the tools. It's a camera app as well. And they've made all these beautiful filters so you can make the nicest looking images possible. And let me just say there's a big difference between the filters that are native to Instagram and things like Facetune that's going to change your whole body. Like I
Oh,
see no ethical dilemma of using the Clarendon filter in, in
right.
Instagram, which just changes because it's supposed to be a gorgeous image because that's what the platform is, then completely like altering your body type using like the Facetune app or something. So I want to make a complete point of
Yes.
distinction there. Use the filters in Instagram. They're meant to enhance your photos. Enhance, not change reality. So, like,
Good point to
totally
make.
different thing. Yeah. So when you have, if when you're using Instagram, well, you're doing things that are visually pleasing, like visually interesting photos. What you should do is take screenshots of just, like your reviews, for example.
Okay.
Don't take a screenshot of a Goodreads review. If you want to use the quote of that review on Instagram, get some sort of beautiful photo, invest in the Photoshop Express app or something that allows you to do text art, and format the review really nicely in text and overlay that over a nice background so you've made something that's visually interesting. That's the kind of thing that people really need to consider for Instagram, because Instagram really does take into account if you start making bad posts. So if you're posting a bunch of screenshots and that's it, then that's really not going to help anything.
Good to know.
And it's going to make sure that no one is seeing your posts in the future.
Okay.
So, but Instagram's also evolved. So like it now has video content. It has a bunch of things that it's trying to absorb from other platforms. Like it has the short things, the short like fleeting things that stay
Like
on your profile for
stories
about
and stuff like that.
stories.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they stole from Snapchat, and then Reels is what they stole from TikTok. They really push those when they want to really stop users from fleeing from their platform to the new one. So they were prioritizing stories a couple of years ago when Snapchat appeared to be a big threat. Snapchat, when was the last time you heard about them? And now they're prioritizing Reels, now that TikTok's the big player. So video content is something to put on there as well, but they also have like TikTok Lite in terms of editing tools and filters on the videos. But it is, keep in mind, a primarily visual platform there.
Okay.
Speaking of comfort level with it, I like Instagram. I have an art background, so like for me, like doing something that look visually nice, I love using the filters. I'm comfortable with it, and I also, I think a lot of authors do a really good job with it, especially ones that get started as like in the Bookstagram community.
Yeah.
They've really perfected Instagram, and they've built a following for themselves by making beautiful images and providing useful content in terms of book recommendations and reviews. So there's really effective ways that writers, even though it's a visual medium, can be using Instagram.
Okay. What do you think about Twitter?
I hate Twitter.
Okay,
I
I do
absolutely
too. But
hate
and
it.
everyone told me, to your point, what you said earlier, a lot of people told me you've got to get on Twitter. You've got to get on Twitter. And I do. I try. Bloodbound Books has a profile there, and I really do appreciate everyone who tags us there. Do not feel bad if I don't
Yeah.
get back to you. The way, and maybe you'll talk about this, but the way people respond on it, I've gotten lost before. I'm responding to the wrong person. Something blows up, and I
Yep.
can't even. And I got to get off, and I just delete my comment. I feel
Yep.
like I'm not doing it correctly. So who does belong on
Yep.
Twitter?
People who do belong on Twitter, I think, are people that like to talk about things that are more current, and like to be involved in big conversations. Usually Twitter has pretty much become a news feed. Like that's what you look at it.
Okay.
And like mostly less personal. You don't see a lot of personal stuff on Twitter like you do on Facebook.
Yeah.
You see like observations about things that might be going on, in all sorts of different news elements. It's not like just like things that are going on the mainstream news. There's like this whole horror Twitter going on that talks about the latest in like horror news. But as you said, it's really easy to get lost because you have to like be on it. To contribute to the conversation, because it moves so quickly. Whereas like on Instagram, you can reply a day later to someone's comments, and it's totally normal. Like that's what people do.
It's
There's
expected.
yeah, exactly, because it isn't as engagement heavy in terms of having a conversation as Twitter. That's a reason why I think Twitter is really hard to use. I feel like if you want to use it effectively, you have to be on it all the time. If you want to use Instagram effectively, you don't have to be on it all the time. You can take a beautiful photo and you can write your caption in, like I do it all the time, where I write it in the notes app and copy it over there. So I'm barely on Instagram to make a post. But with Twitter, if you want to engage, you're going to follow one of those trending topics, and you have to be paying attention to what is going on Twitter, which is often not what's going on in the real world. So
I like that. No, that's true. And that's hard. That can stress. I mean, I don't know if other authors are like me, but that can be extremely stressful. For one reason, it takes you away from kind of what the whole purpose was. If you get so involved because you're on there nonstop, you miss out on the other part of your career, I guess, the writing part of being an author. I've realized that I struggle with the medium of text. So I'm kind of bad with almost all social media. Now that sounds strange for an author to say, I just don't really do good with text. So I should explain what I mean. My personality, if people out there do find themselves like me, where they're trying to line up with one, text, I'm really good, I think, at seeing somebody's facial expression and understanding the tone of their voice, and I get them. But even sometimes with Facebook, I get so excited because I'm like, I start responding to people, but I'm in a conversation here, then I'm in another horror group, or I'm here and there, and suddenly I can't keep up with it. And I feel kind of bad, and sometimes Facebook doesn't give me notifications. And so, one, I feel like I've ignored people, and I'm not doing that reciprocation, but through no fault of my own, maybe it's just not popping up for me. But the second thing is, I can't always read that tone. I don't see their face. I don't know these people. Some of them are in different countries. So is that a real jab, or was it a joke? Is my true intent coming across in my voice? Well, you don't know, because I'm just text and I'm a different person. But I'm realizing I'm a YouTube guy. I have probably the face for radio and the voice for neither, but that's okay, because I at least feel comfortable blathering, right? I can at least feel like, hey, people that listen to me here will be like, oh, well, that's what he meant, and this is clearly the kind of person that he is. So this is really good for me. And when I answer questions, I'm probably going to answer them in a video mailbag, because I want to make sure I'm hitting everything. So they don't have to feel bad. I guess there's a medium for everyone, right? I suppose is what I'm saying. So that's great to know.
Yeah. I agree. And like you, I feel most comfortable in things like this. Like to me, having a conversation is totally natural, as opposed to interjecting something that I feel has to be clever and witty and needs to be conveyed in a very short a small number of characters, which is why I think there's so much fighting on Twitter, to your point, that a lot of things get misinterpreted, and it's really difficult to communicate. If it's difficult for writers, especially I started off as a journalist, and then I moved into social media, where there are character limits on everything. Brevity is huge, and I can't communicate in the Twitter world.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. So just imagine all these people who are not trained in writing, who haven't been through 20 years of editors, removing words from things that they've written to the point where they understand. It must be extraordinarily difficult to get your point across.
Is that one of your big ones in this, or no?
TikTok is another one that I have trouble with the format.
Okay.
Not in a negative way. I really just don't like Twitter. I've given it a shot. I don't have any issue with TikTok. It's very almost performance based. Okay. And that is not anything that I have any experience or training in, or any, I'm not a performer. For me, this is great, having a conversation, but to be able to, rehearse something that I'm going to put up there, and be in a room by myself, talking to my own picture, looking back at me on my iPhone in selfie mode, it is just not something that I'm good at. And I find it difficult. There are people who really excel in this format, and that's awesome for them, because it's something that a lot of people like to watch. And I think it's pretty amazing when people can actually, put together these really charismatic, well thought out videos, when I know it's just them talking to themselves in a room.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's really difficult. And a lot of the other ways like that people, a big thing on TikTok is to make use of their editing features, which is funny. I'm talking to like a video agency today and they're just like, it's the most basic editing features, what like the thing you learn like the first semester in college when you're going in for filming, but people make entire videos of themselves like with where there's no substance, there's no content. It's basically just them having mastered the world's easiest filter, like the world's easiest transition, the world's easiest effect. But like that's the kind of thing that does well on TikTok. It's mostly stupid, but like it's
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think it's pretty much
say.
endless.
I start, and maybe they're doing something with Facebook because I started getting all these things on my Facebook feed, and authors are saying TikTok's good, but I'm getting these things. It's like, are you in uniform? It sounds like Krusty Krab, and then it's usually a female like standing for a second, and then she jumps, and she's turned into another uniform, and it's something usually provocative.
Yep.
I'm like, is there anything else on TikTok except there must be though, because I know there's things happening there, but.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid of it. I don't go to it, but maybe it's good for extreme horror, because I've noticed a lot of us in the extreme horror field. Sometimes we have something very what we write gets a good reaction from people's faces, and so maybe those WTF moments on TikTok are awesome, and I've seen books blow up like that. So maybe it is for extreme horror, but maybe not your dread and your slow burns, as we maybe call it.
Maybe not, unless you have a really talented person who's reviewing it and can give good examples. Like TikTok has a really engaged reading community.
Okay.
So that's what's like prompting this push for people to go onto TikTok. That's one of the things that's prompting the push. I'll get into the other one in a second. But like, so for me, what I think about, like, I have a TikTok. I have a colleague that I work with who's been pushing TikToks, been pushing me to get into TikTok for a long time. Gave it a shot. It is not the right medium for me to devote a lot of time to. However, I do have a profile which enables me to get tagged when people who are good at TikTok talk about my books.
Oh, that is helpful. Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I also think like diversifying and just having a presence on all of them is good, so you don't miss anything, so you might be able to take advantage of these things, so you know about them when they come up. But that's the other thing I think people need to consider as well, is that like you don't need to do all the work yourselves. There's a lot of other people, like that's part of social media, is to make a connection with other people, and I think that can be really true on TikTok, where there is huge potential, and there's huge potential for growth as well. And the only thing I would caution about that is that there used to be huge potential for growth on Instagram. And now there isn't, and they restrict it so you will pay them for ads. That's why everything slows down on the Facebook platform, is because they want everyone to be paying to promote their accounts by advertising. So whereas you can grow really fast on TikTok right now, I really don't know if it's always like that. I don't think you're going to get that exponential growth that you're going to get at first. Like I know 2 accounts that started. One's a stock investment guy, one's a doctor. They started like back at the beginning of 2021, and within like 3 weeks, they both blew up to 20,000 followers. And for about the past 8 months, they've stayed there.
Okay. That seems to be the nature of the beast. These things are, I mean, if you really understand what it is, it always, we build and then we charge these accounts for ads.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think that, TikTok has started doing advertising. It's not as, I don't think it's as easy or self-serve. It's not as self-serve as like Facebook. Like anyone can go in there and make a Facebook ad. Yeah. But I don't think there's this unlimited growth trajectory like people might think at the beginning of starting off an account.
Okay. Everyone shouts that you have to know your audience and hang out where they do. And so how do you find where your audience is on these platforms, I guess?
Well, with those 4 that we talked about, there's billions of people on all of them.
Okay.
So, I mean, your audience is going to be on each one of them. So I don't think you should necessarily choose your platform by where your audience is.
Okay.
By where you think your audience is, because they are probably on at least a couple of them. What you should do is find the communities within each platform where your audience is, because there are going to be them. There's groups within Facebook, which has actually been kind of, and I've seen some horror authors doing this recently, where instead of starting a page, they'll start a group,
Mhm.
because group content is still prioritized within the algorithm. So you'll start a group instead of an author page, and
Yeah.
you'll invite people into the group. But I mean, not necessarily even one like that that's author based, but like, for groups about horror, groups about reading horror, groups
Yeah.
about, if you have like a monster you write about, you can join a vampire group,
I was gonna say that, yeah, those are the best thing for me, since Facebook is what I know the
Mhm.
best. The groups have really been the ones that are dedicated to a genre, and I was just thinking about that. If you
Mhm.
really want a specific vampire novel, there's groups, like you said, just to that. I'll tip a hat to one
Mhm.
of my favorite ones that I know about. It's called Books of Horror. And I've been on one for a
Mhm.
while, and it's got like probably about, I'd say, 9,000 readers in there. But that's all that they do. They love that, and so that's like their version of going to the library. They just scroll through and they're specifically looking for that. Don't have to worry about an author.
Yeah.
It's being prioritized, like you said, and they want to engage
Mhm.
and talk about books. There are some that
Mhm.
are probably upwards of like 20, 30,000 just readers in them. That blows your
Mhm.
5,000 word, or your 5,000 word, your 5,000 friend
Mhm.
count out of the water.
Yeah.
And books have gone viral in groups before, and I have seen the results of when that happens. It's really cool. I don't know if the books are always good or not, but they're getting a reaction and the buzz happens, and the author sees sales. And I think that's
Yeah.
where authors want to be, in those groups and communicating and talking, not necessarily selling, because that's maybe not where
Mhm.
you do that, but just engaging with those people and letting them know who you are. So definitely
Mhm.
those groups. Because yeah, I was thinking about that. Even if I have 5,000 friends, I look at a lot of my friends, and most of them are authors. And at a certain point, there's only so much you can do for all these authors on your page. You can share honest
Mhm.
reviews if they've given you a copy. You can motivate them, and you can share their posts and support them in that way. But at some stage, you can't buy 3,000 other authors' books. So if the author is only
Yes.
selling to their friends list, and their friends are also authors with them, and they're like working together, you've got to get into these other groups. You've got to get
Yeah.
that connection. Awesome. Um,
Absolutely.
so this next topic is probably just us scratching the surface, because this one could be an entire
Mhm.
show. But here's the deal: we've got our platform. We're there. How in the world do you sell books? Meaning, like, I know they teach you got to ask for the sale, and I agree with it to a
Mhm.
point. But I get this image all the time. I don't know if you ever watched The Critic with John Lovitz, but there was this one scene where he's a cardboard cutout. I was like, buy my book, buy my book. And I feel like that. I look at Joe sometimes, I'm like, I don't know, dude, is this too much? And I feel like we're hitting people over the head, and it's not good. So I'm
Mhm.
here. I found the right platform. My skills are embraced. How do I sell books? What do I do as an author?
Well, it really, I mean, I want to say like, so the idea is going to be the same, but it's going to manifest itself a little bit differently depending on the platform.
Mhm.
So, and this actually goes in like with brands as well. This isn't just for authors, but this will go in for anyone who's selling anything, is that you don't want to do a hard sell all the time. Why would anyone follow you basically to see ads? People, we can skip ads if you DVR anything now. No one wants to see ads all the time. So no one's going to follow you if all you do is advertise. So you got to think about like, just, I would say the things that are most, like, think about yourself as if you were thinking about marketing a product. What are your features and benefits? What are things that make you interesting on social media? What can you uniquely contribute? So if, like, let's say you've got great, let's say you're a news junkie and you got great witticisms about current events. Twitter might be a great platform for you, and you bill yourself as this funny person who makes comments. So you can have a couple tweets get picked up, maybe go viral or something like that, just because you post funny things. You're good with witty banter and
Mhm.
things like that. Oh, and then on your profile, you're an author, and people might want to check it out because let's say you write things that are witty and funny, in your books, then you've demonstrated that this is how you write, that these are the thoughts that you have, and you've given people a reason to buy your books. So every once in a while you'll put something in like, oh, I did this new interview, like, oh, my book is on sale for $2.99 today, or check out this review, or my cover's looking awesome. And that will be the same as the other networks as well. So there are some people who have great accounts on like TikTok and other social media networks, and Instagram in particular, where they talk about writing all the time. They talk about their process because that is inherently interesting to readers, is how a writer comes up with this stuff. Like they'll talk about they'll talk about, like, where they fit writing in on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
yeah.
They'll talk about the struggles. Yeah. And that
How to
kind of
cure
stuff is
writer's
really,
block, how to, how you come up with
yes.
ideas, exciting stuff that people just want to
Mhm,
know about you, right?
mhm.
Maybe what you're
Yeah,
reading that's
exactly.
non-horror.
Yeah, that too. And people just, and there's other people with these accounts where they're writers, but they're also avid readers. And so they have their whole accounts on books, and every so often they'll throw in their own stuff. And those are great accounts as well because they're providing a lot of value for people. It's not just a sales pitch, but they're providing their value with, being a really solid book reviewer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can do. It just really depends on, that what you're good at, what is interesting about you, what can you put out there that's not just your book. Some people, like, it might just be like they got a cool, awesome adventure life.
Yeah.
Like they do cool stuff all the time, so they might just post that and you're like, well, I want to see this. This person's like, they're skiing today, they're like,
Or you have a connection with
they're out
someone, right? Like you both
there.
like skiing, or you both like cooking. You talked about taking pictures of the meals. So you kind
Hmm.
of you share recipes, and that's just how you gain that
Yeah,
commonalities between people. I really like how you said
exactly.
that, because is one thing that I did learn from the classroom, I think, is you buy books from people you like. And one thing I learned in the classroom was that it didn't matter how many, I would have a teacher come in, didn't matter how many accolades they had. They could be a doctorate. They could know all the new acronyms, because in education, we love acronyms. We love all these buzzwords. But at the end of the day, if a kid, or I'll just say a student, I don't want to call them kids, right? Because we had 18-year-olds in class. But if you had a student who didn't really like you or admire something about you, like you said, whether it's skiing or you just have interesting stories to tell, they didn't
Mhm.
learn from you. It had nothing to do with anything else. You could have been brilliant in everything else. If they couldn't connect to you in some way, they didn't buy your lesson plan. They just didn't care. And I remember a lot of teachers, when I would try to share that with newer teachers, and in the beginning of my career they told me, "Oh, well, you have it easy," because I was the physical education teacher at first. So that's why I talked about the parachute. It was like everyone loves the PE teacher. I was like, "Whoa, hang on a second." So I ended up branching out. I taught biology, I taught health, and I finished in English. But it held true. And I also taught not just elementary. I started in it was like a blue ribbon charter school, and I ended my career at an alternative where I taught gangbangers and literal felons. It was like Dangerous Minds. It was extremely stressful, but at the end of the day, I'm not saying I saved every kid by any means, but if I could
Mhm.
connect with them 90% of the time, they bought the lesson plan, and that's what it was. And so I think
Mhm.
it's probably the same thing for the author. I like how you mentioned
Mhm.
brands too. It really made me think about commercials, and just an author should look at commercials. One of the things I taught was like rhetoric, and we used to bring in commercials and dissect them, and the product is the last thing that's ever mentioned. I'm not telling authors to
Mhm.
manipulate and tug on, heartstrings and everything, but don't focus on the product. If you're a Simpsons fan, do you
Mhm.
remember the Mr. Plow episode with Homer? He was okay. So
Mm,
I'll set the stage
I
real
haven't
quick.
seen all of them.
Okay, so this was one that he was going to start plowing driveways because it was snow, and so he pays
Mhm.
an ad agency to make this ad for him because he's really excited. It's going to air. He sits down with the family, they watch it. But what they've really created for this Mr. Plow was this. It's basically a perfume commercial, and I'll probably link it down below so that everyone can at least watch it. And it's like this male and female looking beautifully sexy, and she's like, oh, and a snow globe cracks on the floor, and there's dramatic music, and the snow blows away, and it says Mr. Plow. And I can't remember if it's Lisa or Bart, and they look at Dad and goes, "Dad, was that your commercial?" And he goes, "I don't know." And so the point is, you don't need to manipulate anyone, but it should be like the last part, like the product, right? Almost when we're marketing.
Mhm.
Be you, be genuine, be honest, be interesting, be who you are. And then if you are that way, people who would naturally like that will gravitate towards you, and they'll want to check out your book, and that will make all the difference in this buy my book thing.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think what the way that people should think about it is that your account is your branding play. Remember, not even every commercial is a hard sell. You'll see campaigns out all the time where they just talk about stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, and then there's no call to action. There's no product featured. It's just all about this brand. Maybe it's something that they're doing like as a cause or something, or some sort of charity endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
That's branding. That is brand awareness. That's specifically out there to make you like them. It's not, there's no product necessarily featured. So think about that for yourself, is that you're the brand. This is just how you raise awareness about you, getting some name recognition out there. Like when Geico runs caveman ads and like things and ads with, like that tag team ad with the ice cream that Geico was running.
Yeah.
The Whoop There It Is ad. Like that has nothing to do with car insurance. That is just getting you to think of Geico all the time.
Yeah.
So when you do need no car insurance, you go to Geico. So like that's the same concept that you want, is that you want to be out there. You want to be likable. But think about how many so even in mass ads that they pay millions of dollars for to advertise, sometimes there's not even a product. Sometimes it's just, hey, this is who we are. You should like us.
Yeah.
So I think people do need to think about it like that, because, and look at a brand, look at an Instagram account that's a brand account. Mm-hmm. See how often they're actually saying link in bio to buy.
Yeah.
It's very rare. Like they will be showing their products all the time. They will be using their brand colors. They'll be showing you things to do with their products.
Right.
Like they'll be showing the lifestyle that's associated with their products, but they won't be trying to sell you every single time they connect with you.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Before we wrap up, any last words of wisdom from you?
I think really it's just to not just jump into social media because like that's because you think you need to be on it, but to really plan, to go over these things that we talked about, to look up, if you don't have any marketing or business experience, it's very, very easy to find a blog online where it tells you like how to write your value proposition. And you need to kind of figure that out. You need to figure out your own identity first, and then you'll be able to think like, okay, where do I fit in? What are my strengths and weaknesses? What are things that people will find interesting about me? What am I comfortable revealing? Like, what am I comfortable with? Like, think about that a lot, and then I would start an account with all of them, mm-hmm. like, and then just say like, okay, well, where do I focus? Where do I put my effort in? And sometimes you'll find that like, naturally as to where you'll see growth at first, but you could probably go in with an idea, because odds are you're probably already on these platforms. Like who doesn't have social media of some kind? So
absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Well, like we said, know yourself, know your enemy, and you'll be successful 100% of the time. So thank you again. For anyone who has questions about how to be more effective about their publishing goals, please drop them below. And as we said, Lucy might write back, and I'll talk back to everyone, and that'll be perfect. And we'll see you on the next episode of Horror Business. Thank you.